Hi everyone. In this video, we are going to talk about the second step of metastasis, which is going to be basement detachment. Let me write that out. Basement detachment. All right. So in step one, our cells detached somewhat from one another. We got rid of kind of our E-cadherin connective stationary molecule. We started allowing beta-catenin to kind of make some of these pro-tumor proteins in the nucleus. So our next step is going to be detaching from the basement membrane. So if I start to draw out what a normal cell interaction with the basement membrane would look like. Let me draw out my cell, and then I have my basement membrane. Basement membrane, BM. There we go. Okay. So I have my cell and my basement membrane. The basement membrane is really just referring to kind of the layers surrounding the cell. This 2D representation isn't perfect, but it's these layers of different proteins or different fibers like collagen, laminin, and fibronectin. Different fibers that are going to be present in this basement membrane, sticking out and interacting with our cell. And these kind of partially hold it in place as well and form kind of this mesh that our cell exists within. So in a normal cell, it'll be just interacting with this basement membrane, kind of a normal cell that's more stationary is just going to be interacting with it directly via these proteins called integrins. Labeled that in yellow, that's an integrin that's going to be sticking out of the cell, so it's part of the cell, and interacting with the basement membrane and holding the cell in place. So this is decreasing mobility. However, if we go and we transition into our cancer cell environment, let me put my cancer cell on here. I'll put my basement membrane with lots of kind of fibers sticking up out of it and holding my cell in place. A cancer cell is going to do two things that are going to kind of change how it interacts with this basement membrane. The first is that if we look back at this original image, we're going to get rid of kind of our mobility restricting integrins. And the second is that we're instead going to replace them with integrins that promote mobility. So if I draw my two different integrins on here, two examples of that are going to be alpha V beta 3 and alpha V beta 5. These are both integrins that are going to increase mobility and allow our cancer cell to start to kind of move through this membrane. And they do this in a couple different ways. So when these integrins bind to components of the matrix and they interact, it's going to lead to a couple different things. The first is going to be that it triggers an increase in some of our intercellular pathways, intracellular pathways. So RAS and PI3K are examples of pathways that are going to increase growth, proliferation, etc. of the cancer cell. And our integrin binding is going to trigger those pathways. A second thing that's going to happen is we are going to increase the release of MMPs and UPAs. These are our two categories of proteases. And we're going to be using them to degrade the matrix. So when integrins are bound, in particular these kind of pro-mobility integrins, like AVB3 and AVB5, we're going to release more of these proteases. Lastly, I kind of drew an arrow pointing back to the integrin, because what we're going to see is that when we bind integrins, it's going to change kind of the integrin's future affinity for binding to matrix components. So every time that we bind to a matrix component, like I have right here, we're going to see that our integrins change in terms of their affinity to bind in the future. So those are the three kind of changes that are taking place in this case. And then with the release of these proteases that I've listed up here, they're going to come back around and they're going to degrade the matrix and start to kind of eat away at it. Literally just eating away at components of it and starting to kind of clear a path for a cancer cell to be able to move and progress towards the bloodstream or whatever direction that it is moving in. All right. So that's kind of our overview of basement detachment and what that's going to look like. In the next video, we will talk about the next step of metastasis, which is matrix degradation.